Let's say you have a provider who provides for you and you get to spend your energy in ways that are most beneficial to you without wasting it on mundane tasks like juicing an orange, making coffee, cutting bread, selling tickets, selling products, being a cashier, being a courier, being a cafe server, working in a restaurant as someone in your 20s. If you have a provider, congratulations, you are in an advantage. You get to deal with your own time, schedule things based on your terms, and as such have a level of freedom that most people do not have. Be careful, because how you carry yourself will make people judge you in one way or another. If you lack a perceptive awareness of what they might think or feel, if you lack compassion or elegance or both, because the two go hand in hand, they tend to misunderstand you. They may, and they may judge you. Or if you're on either extreme and you have too much compassion, you look too sophisticated, they can also judge you just because you look different. Being a taken care of person does not exclude the need to belong to society. It does not save you from the consequences of your actions. Not with your partner, not with your family, not within society. You still need to have boundaries along with those standards. Starting with financial boundaries is one way to define your ideal outcome. Set some goals that are smart. Have those goals be, if you have decided about your SMART goals, SMART is an acronym for 5 words that define good goal setting. You can look that up. You can set out to achieve your intention. Let's say that your partner or your man or your provider makes $1 million a year, meaning they are multimillionaires. If they share 10% of their income with you per year, you will have $100K every year, which broken down per month is around $9K or so. But you need to calculate this punctually because I'm just saying approximate numbers. So let's say you receive around 10,000 euros or dollars per month, and you get to either save or use the money. You can invest in your business, and you can invest in so many things that are not liabilities. If you just take 1 times 10K or 10,000 and you invest it in one place that has an interest rate of around 7%, you will have a retirement plan already. To many people in Eastern Europe, having 10,000 in the bank is as rare as seeing a meerkat in the capital, or like an exotic animal somewhere where it shouldn't be. Most people in the US today regard an income of around $33,000 as the minimum income for anyone. Now, I would calculate this to 1/3 of its size and say that is the income that belongs to most people where I am from, which is Central/Eastern Europe. So here where I live, 33K is unimaginable per year for the average earner or for the minimum wage worker, because we are lucky if we have 2K to our names, honestly, as like the average citizen. And I'm saying this as someone who's coming from an extremely educated family. Like, both my parents won contests in university and in high school, and they were super smart. My father has a medical degree, my mother has 3 degrees. So, education has always been the most important thing for me as well, until a point. But our education level has nothing to do with our income, because our level of financial literacy has nothing to do with what we know about our field and how we can do our jobs better. So basically, I didn't lose much by abandoning a career, so to speak, based on solely on higher education, if you know what I mean. Now, again, because I said that having around 10K in the bank is like a good amount for the average person where I live, I understand that different economies require different standards. So you want to translate everything to your currency and your location, because it will depend on you as a person and on your country or economic state. So take everything I say with a pinch of salt, please, because only then will you be able to understand what I'm trying to say, which is that if we're talking the US, right, having 10K per month is well above average earning. And if you have that for, say, 6 months, and in the end of those 6 months you have 60K, so $60,000 in the bank, or even in cash, you get to spend those $60,000 in different ways. What you could spend $60,000 in Eastern Europe for example, is a very cheap land of, say, up to 10,000. No mortgage, no loans, no interest rate. Just the pure $10,000 and the property itself. Hopefully it does have a house, so you have electricity, water, and plumbing and the sewage system. But if you do not, you need to establish those things yourself, which will, if necessary, cost half, if not more, of the original cost of the land itself. Combined. But if, for example, you need a car, there are very inexpensive cars out there that are obviously used and not in such a good condition, but they will do the job. They will get you from one place to another. You can carry a few luggages in them, say in like a Suzuki or something. You have these cars here and they look kind of funny. but for the price that they sell them for, it's truly Eastern European. And you wouldn't even run out of 1/10 of your money if you were to establish a name for yourself in here with that much money. So let's say you want to do something business wise, or let's say you want to do something to your body, for example. Let's say you have been collecting some things for some physical procedures. Let's say you need your breasts changed because throughout the years they have changed, so you need to kind of um, make them more aesthetically pleasing. That's like 2K already. Let's say you want a nose job. You don't need one, but you want one. That's another 2K if you're sticking with Eastern European prices, but nose jobs can range up to $30,000 in the US, and I have no idea about Asian prices, but I have heard that they can go way above that as well. Now, let's say you want to prepare for your future by making sure you have enough money for any urgent health related surgeries. Again, you may need up to 5K or 10K or more for that life or death situation. Because if you go with private healthcare, they will ask for money, and the surgery itself will cost the most. And it is predictable that prices will only rise in the future. So around 6,000 is what I would for sure not deprive myself of in the long run if I get to save money for my healthcare. A car is not an asset. A car is a liability. You can have a car, drive it, and still run out of money, because a car can be on your name, but it can also be repossessed. It is very, very much a mobile thing. It does not even belong to you as much as land or property or real estate, because it takes energy, it takes fuel, it takes renovation and fixing things on it. It takes, your careful assistance. It takes your careful, caring for the car, almost as though you had been caring for a loved one. You need to be careful, because a car is not just a tool, it is also a liability. A property can be self-sufficient provided the water supply is organic and private. So, for example, you have a local well that you have digged for yourself or for your property, that you get water from. I'm talking about reducing bills here, because for someone who's just starting out with financial education, they may need to know what actually motivates their actions if they do not have so much money. So to limit electricity expenses, the only way to limit that is either by going completely off-grid and offline in a way, and not using light bulbs, washing machines, heating systems that are electric based, ovens, you know, like kitchen machines that require electricity, anything like that. Or you can use sunlight energy or renewing energy. Those prices in some countries can range anywhere from 3,000 all the way up to 10,000, if not more. So if you want to, have, for example, an electric sunlight storage as well as sun panels to make solar energy, you have to have the money for that to invest with. And then after that, there may need to be replaced some parts. Like you may need to replace some parts to keep the system functioning. But again, those expenses will be much lower than what you invested with to begin with. Like say up to 1,500 euros or dollars. Now, what if you want to limit the amount of money you spend on groceries? You have multiple options. You can either borrow food from family and friends, which I do not recommend, because as long as you live in different households in different places, they will, generally be attached to what they make and what they get. But if you're very close friends and you continuously invite yourself over to meals, then of course that's a different story. Because if you have like social events together that you attend, even, or celebrations that you do together, of course it's not a bad thing to ask for food, but just going there and asking for food seems like a bit weird to me. Or you can grow your own plants. This requires good earth quality, or a type of ground that allows for growing plants, and so on. But planning foods, or growing plants, is basically a matter of multiple things. You need to have a reliable and sustainable water supply for that, as well as a specific range of temperature to not be either above or below a certain temperature, and your presence. You need to attend to your garden. You need to attend to your trees. If you have trees, that's a different story a little bit, because trees require less care than general ground grown plants. But trees also produce fruits every season, and very predictably. You are lucky if you have trees, because trees provide shade and so much that nothing can replace. But once you have a grown tree that produces reliable fruits every season, every year, that's almost like a form of income. So when it comes to life and death, when you have a tree in your own garden, that can be such a relief, especially for someone who doesn't have such a high level of appetite. Like, back in the days, our ancestors used to live off of bushes and trees produce for weeks on end. So if you think about it, if you have one fruit tree, you can live off that fruit tree, if push came to shove, for almost a month, if the produce is reliable and sufficient. If you have two trees, you have versatility in what you eat. That's even more amazing. So Seasonal produce is amazing in general for both your health and your income. Many people who start out with saving and investing invest in gold or silver as jewelry. Now, some pieces, and I mean the cheapest pieces, can start from 200 euros and on. So, you know, the only time I wouldn't suggest you invest in jewelry is if you tend to lose the jewelry or be stolen from. But other than that, jewelry is a good way to invest in, especially gold, because silver's price is kind of extreme in terms of it being either very low or very high at times. So, if you want to make sure, you choose either white gold or regular gold of high quality. Silver can also be very processed and very combined with other types of materials, and then the price can decrease. The silver can also become more easy to break or taken apart, and so your jewelry is essentially done in that case. Make sure if you purchase any silver material that the silver is truly high quality. I have talked about the cheapest pieces of land you can buy probably in the entire world. I'm not talking about $1 house or €1 houses, which take like a €5,000 deposit, and provided you finish the renovation, you will get your deposit back on time. I'm talking about land, or pieces of land that require no further intervention on your part, no further assistance except some local regulations that require you to, for example, mow the land. And that's about it. To keep the property on your name. But property prices can go up to billions of dollars. Literally, the reason why investing in property is such a good idea still in 2026 is because the prices are so flexible. They can be so influenced by inflation, by local economy, by global economy, by personal preference, by any renovated assets on the land, such as houses, by newly built houses, or parts of the property. What fascinates me about investing in property is that many people who say they make an income from renting property are people who, do not really take into account that the young person today, almost without exception, needs to pay rent. And that is different from what the lord, or the person who rents the house, had to go through as a young adult. So economies change, and you have to keep into account that renting houses may not be forever. So if you expect your income to grow from only renting out property, then you may need to diversify a little bit. But anyway, if you have an Airbnb that you run, or some property of that sort, I congratulate you, because you are already ahead of many people. If you do not pay rent, neither do you rent, your own property, congratulations, because you also are not putting money to waste by means of renting. But also, if you have a good, reliable job that pays you well enough that you are able to rent anywhere on earth or most places on earth and still make a good living, also congratulations, because you are rare for doing that in a way, and in a good way. You are a good example for many people, even without you maybe even realizing it. You can write books for free, or you can pay publishers to publish your books. Again, prices range from 2,000 all the way up to 10,000. You do not really know which publisher asks for how much. But once you have a little bit of business money and personal capital that you can start with, you can invest in so many things in a business, like hiring employees, assistants, having online tools like websites to sell products on, to sell services on, creating landing pages for your short books that people can purchase multiple things on other than just your book. Using AI tools such as reading text out loud, typing in whole batches of text instead of you having to do that. Asking AI about what is most updated and relevant for any field of interest that you are busy or occupied with and by. Finding business partners that you contract with to maintain a relationship exchange that is good for both of you. There are just so many things you can spend money on online, provided you have a business. Especially these days when so many businesses are online. And I'm not just talking about social media influencers, because they tend to have affiliate links or their own websites that they sell things on. I'm talking about private people who have brands either on their name or on a made up name that they run reliably for years on end, that does not require their being presented with the public and publicity in general. You can remain private and still have an online business. You do not have to expose yourself to social media, for example. You can invest to begin with. And again, social literacy is literally the prerequisite to investing as well. But investing is not a condition for having financial literacy, because if you do not understand money, you will never have enough that you think is enough, that you know is enough. So if you have any amount of anything, or any asset or possession, you want to understand what you have. And financial literacy is the tool for you to understand money. If you do not understand money, how can you even have it in the long run? There is no way. So, do you read books? Investing in either three of these things is the wisest decision. 1, your health. 2, your portfolio or your wealth. And 3, your social network or your family or your community. And I'm not talking about your country or your, economy. I'm talking about your direct family or community, the people that you spend time with on a daily basis, or the people you spend most of your time with is your family, and you want to invest in those, or you want to invest in your portfolio or wealth, and you do not want to disregard your health either.